Hi, everybody. I owe you a story. I'm afraid my stories for the season schedule um, was thrown off due to illness, but I'm feeling much better and would still love to share the story that I had planned. This story is my most personal. My family moved into a house that was built in 1969. And we moved in 1971. Um, the house had been built by a couple, and we learned, was their dream house. But unfortunately, and I will call her Dee, passed away after just a couple of years. She did live with um, a medical condition that was life threatening. And so her husband decided to sell, and he was pleased that a family was moving in. My parents met him, and they connected really well. And there were 6 of us kids, so it was going to be a very different energy in the house. The house was, even though it was new, it had a certain character for sure. My parents liked older houses, and they had an offer in on a big old house that they just loved, but someone outbid them. And so a few months go by, and they found this place, and they were intrigued by it. It was a beautiful spot. The house was typical of its era, inside and out. On the outside, it was sort of a dark wood siding, and inside, it had a vaulted ceilings with these dark stained beams. It had a sunken living room, black wrought iron railings, and a red carpet on the stairs and in the living room. The stain on the kitchen cabinets was very dark, and even the light fixtures were black. I mean, the whole place had a kind of I've always thought of it as a Spanish feel and a sort of a medieval castle feel. And interesting to note that the previous owner asked my parents if they would like to keep this little 3-legged chair that sat on the landing. There were 2 sets of stairs to go up where the main living area was. And Dee would often be unable to do both flights of stairs, so she would rest on the chair. My parents said yes, and that chair sat there for almost 30 more years. When my parents sold, the new owner didn't wish to keep it, so it's still in the family. So it was a kind of a very atmospheric sort of place, very different from our previous home. And again, it was full of energy, very often positive energy. There was tragedy in my family, so dark at times. My parents were very social. We held lots of family gatherings, and when I was 13, one of my brothers died as the result of a car accident. And so the sadness that the house already held intensified. And, I never liked being alone in the house. I always felt like I was being watched. Very early on, and I learned from a neighbor that my bedroom had been Dee's. I have this very vague memory from very early on of waking up one night and there being a woman in my bedroom. Now, I didn't think much of it. I've not always thought, oh, there was a ghost in my room. I mean, it was just this vague memory. I know it could have been my sister, who is several years older than me. It could have been my mom. But that's interesting to note. When I was a teenager, I was home alone and I was sitting at the kitchen table and I was on the phone with a friend, and sitting back in my chair holding it was a wonderful Harvest Gold phone. It was wall mounted. And I was holding the phone and I was leaning back, and to my right there was the doorway to the dining room, and then the dining room opened up onto the living room. But I thought I saw someone walk across the dining room. And I did tell my friend, and I just sat in silence for a bit listening. But I knew there was no one there. My family, to this day, if anyone ever experienced anything, they've not shared it with me. So many, many years go by, and well after I've moved out, and I live abroad for a year, and I came home sort of unexpectedly. I just had an experience, which is a whole other story, that led me to feeling it was time to go home. And so my parents were on holiday at the time, and I stayed at the house and was home alone yet again. And I had only been home a day or two when something really interesting happened. Now, when you enter the house, well, in the entry hall, you've got the den to the right and a laundry room to the left and the staircase, and then there's a door leading to the back hall where there are bedrooms and a bathroom. So I was sitting in the den watching TV, and to my left was the door into the front hall. And suddenly the TV went off. I remember hearing the click as if someone pressed the remote control. I wasn't particularly concerned. I just figured something was wrong with the TV or the electricity, although of course there had not been any problem before that, and there was not afterwards. But as I was sitting there in what was really dead silence because of the TV going off suddenly, the door that led to the back hall slammed shut. Now, this was early November. I had no windows open. There were no heating vents or anything that would have or could have slammed the door. All the family pets at this time had passed away. There was definitely, I knew there was something crazy happening. And I wasn't as frightened as one might think I would have been. I think that my many, many years of being in that house had been full of strange experiences and energies. And this was just another, much more dramatic, definitely. I believe that because I was home after being away for a year, I think someone was really excited to see me. And interesting, this was very early November, when the veil is thin. But, so yeah, I truly didn't say or do anything. I remember just sitting there. I knew I was alone. I knew something had happened that was something I couldn't explain, but I also knew that it was probably Daniel or Dee, and that did not feel frightening to me. Definitely put me on edge, but I was always kind of on edge in that house. Nothing else happened in the week or so until my parents arrived home. And my parents sold the house, I guess it was about 3 years later. And they sold to a young couple with 3 young boys. Interestingly, years later, one of those boys, when he was a teenager, almost died as the result of an accident. And I am so grateful that he survived. I sure hope the energy, that strange energy in that house has lifted. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Take care, and bye for now.